Aloha and welcome to Be Fit for Health. This is Bianca, your host. It's another great day to celebrate our health and well-being. And I just wanted to say thank you for taking your time out today to spend an hour with us and to go over some options when it comes to what we can do for our bodies and for today's show, our minds. Luckily, I have a reoccurring guest that I'm bringing back again because I need a follow-up. I need to know what's been going on out there in people's minds and how are they relating to what's been happening and what is it that we can do still to improve our mindset. It's not just the chemistry or the neurology of the brain or the function of the brain, but it's also how is our attitude? Has it improved? Are we getting worse? Is our families starting to become more understanding and compassionate? Or are we trying to kill each other at home? And I don't really know, but we're going to find all that out. I brought back Dr. Tolly Amaxopoulos. And I know I said that wrong because I either add a syllable or take out a syllable. One of those things, and he keeps saying, you're doing great. He's such a good guy. Anyways, I just want to reintroduce you to him because he's worthy of that. He had his doctorate degree in the Department of Health and Department of Education and clinical psychologist, and he's a behavioral psychologist. He deals with kids, he deals with families, he deals with everybody actually because he's that talented. So he, says to himself every morning because it's all about affirmations, exactly. Right? I believe. And he works with depression, ADHD, anxiety, anything that you can think of that comes with our insecurities or worries that come to our day-to-day stresses. So welcome, Dr. Tolly. I want to say, I'm happy that you're back here because I have a lot of questions, because so much has happened. Mm-hmm. I think the last time you were here was like 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, maybe something like that.
That's about right. Time flies, so it could
be more than that. Yeah. I don't know. But it seems like, it was a while ago because so much has happened since you were here last.
Yeah, you're right. I think when I was here last, we weren't really sure. Things seem to be getting a little bit better. And now we're kind of back in that same place, right? We're not really sure. Some restaurants and things are opening again. I think that was before the shutdown, right? So now the shutdown was about to end, and now we're back into round 2.
Yeah, so I think we're dealing with some of those insecurities of what's happening and what's not happening. We have our guest producer.
Oh, thank you.
We just had our producer come and go, could you speak into the mic, please?
Sorry about that.
I love you, Leah. You're awesome. So a lot's happened in our communities. We've had another shutdown. Mm-hmm. We've had people, unfortunately losing businesses. I was just mentioning in the previous show, the Honolulu Club is shut down. You will remember.
Yeah, that is sad.
Think about it. 40 years of being in business, being a part of the community, being an icon. You've changed so many people's lives. And talk about psychology. Really, exercise is a form of psychology. It makes you happy. And this was a happy place for a lot of people for many years.
Yeah, great gym, great pool area, just all around positive environment. So that is sad. I agree with you.
Yeah, for me too, even though when you work somewhere, it's always work, but then I always appreciated going to work because I had a chance to play and see my friends. I know it sounds like I got paid to play, but in essence I kind of did because we all have to enjoy our jobs too. That's another part of our psychology. If you can't enjoy your work, your life doesn't really have so much meaning to you because you feel like everything is stressful.
Yeah, there's, I don't know if you've read Shoe Dog, Phil Knight's autobiography.
No.
He started Nike, and he talked about when he was a kid, all he wanted to do was find a job where it felt like play.
Right.
At that time, I think he was doing some kind of military service, and he was going into accounting, and he was just really miserable. And then every time he worked on Nike, he had a lot of great employees that became friends, and I think later on they became kind of partners and things like that. But yeah, finding enjoyment in your work is important. And I tell a lot of people I wake up, pretty excited most mornings. I'm just every day is kind of a unique challenge, and I still look forward to it. So
it's a purpose, and like what you're doing is that, and is measurable too because you can see progress.
Sometimes.
Well,
sometimes it's not.
Yeah, it's not immediate,
yeah.
but you know that what you're doing when you wake up is like, okay, you're gonna go to work, you're gonna make a difference in someone's life somehow, some way. You're not thinking that in those terms when you're doing your job, but you know that ultimately there is a purpose in what you're doing. There's meaning in what you're doing. You feel good giving. It's people don't understand that. It's most people do, but some don't. That when you give selflessly, in a term of knowing that it's going to better someone else, it's a very rewarding, instant gratification, almost like a high that you get when you see the outcome of that result and from that effort. And I feel like if we could do more of that in our communities where there is nothing that you can gain from it, but you know that it's going to help someone else, I think that might change the mindset of other people in the world at some point.
Yeah. Well, I think you get to work with people right at all different stages of their health journey, right? So
right.
That is pretty cool, taking somebody maybe that's probably like an elite athlete to the next step, or somebody that's just starting, right? They might have gotten some kind of, really terrifying diagnosis, right, where they've got to immediately lose weight.
Right.
So it's kind of similar, helping people figure things out.
Well, I don't have a degree in psychology, but I play one as a trainer.
Sure.
So over 30 years, I kind of got really good at understanding the human behavior. And what people are willing to do and not do because of their insecurities or concerns or being exposed. And that's another thing, we feel so sensitive today, especially because everything is so in your face all the time, immediately, that if you were to say something or do something, you're going to be exposed immediately. And that insecurity, anxiety is played on so many people on different levels that you might not even be conscious of it, but then it's subconsciously eating away at you, and you feel like you're good, you're not stressed, you're not freaking out. But then at some point it shows up where someone says something to you and you blow up, or you snap at them.
Yeah, bottled up emotions. It's I think the term for talking it through without even any kind of solution is, they call it verbal ventilation.
Yeah.
Where you call up a friend, you're really just ventilating, getting it off your chest, and then suddenly you feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be really helpful to just talk about things.
Well, that's why there's so many psychologists out there, because we're willing to pay you for that time, because we want some good advice. Your friends may be good at listening, but sometimes, unless you have a very wise friend or someone who's lived their life well, can give you some good sound advice. I was lucky I had that with my dad. Unfortunately, he's passed, but he was a very smart man, and he lived life to the fullest. When I say he lived his fullest potential, and my brother is the same too. He's very wise, beyond his years, and so I'm very lucky to have those people to go to. But not everybody has that. So, when it comes to with everything that's been going on, there's a lot of people depressed because they've lost their job. They can't make ends meet. How do you cope with that as a psychologist? How do you help them through that?
Well, I think, when you're dealing with depression and anxiety, I never go in with kind of a one-size-fits-all approach, because there's all kinds of surrounding variables. Right. And they've done some pretty interesting studies with PTSD, where they'll work with folks to reduce some of the symptoms, and then they can, through some kind of short-term therapy, they can get these folks sleeping a little bit quicker, right? Staying in bed longer. Some of the intrusive thoughts, they'll help kind of get rid of them to some degree, or make it, maybe not get rid of them, but make it more manageable. But what they find is for some folks, for that really long-term kind of healing or whatever, or them just being more, I guess, adaptable, they are usually finding some kind of long-term treatment, some kind of relationship, because even though the symptoms might have kind of dissipated a little bit, there's still issues that might pop up around relationships, right, around work struggles. So it's kind of it's not usually just depression, organic, right? There's all kinds of things that these folks might need help with. Boundary setting's a pretty common one, especially now, because all of our boundaries are affected.
They're so in everyone's space, yeah.
Yeah, if you go grocery shopping, some people are, I'm on the more comfortable side. If somebody's kind of walking by me, I don't think much of it, but some folks are, they take it, they're really upset, they can get very angry, they want that 6 foot of space.
Oh yeah, they want to follow the rules.
And I get it, but also, I'm compassionate, right? I know that people are, if you're in Safeway or Food Lion or Costco, I don't know if I can guarantee people are going to be 6 feet away from me, right? It's going to be crowded, so I try not to get too worked up. But
well, that's why people are also getting angry that have had their businesses shut down. They're looking at all of this. They're saying, wow, it's okay for people to go to Walmart and to all these places where people are like, it's like 500 people in one spot,
mm-hmm.
and you can't allow people to go into a gym where there's like maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 people in one space area, at the most. And it's the same thing. It's just different location and different things. And I think a lot of people's anger I think it goes back and forth from depression to anger. And I think they're kind of related, if I'm correct. I always ask the professionals because I'm assuming things here, but.
Well, some folks will view depression as kind of anger pointed inward.
Right.
Right. But yeah. You're right.
Yeah, thank you. See, he's so smart. He's my guest. He says I'm right all the time. No, I'm just assuming because, relating to the frustrations that are out there and people knowing that they're not getting what they want. And we are a species that likes to get what we want, relatively speaking. And I think through hard work, especially when you feel justified, when you've worked so hard to get something and to make something happen, and then it's taken away from you, not because you were a bad person, but because circumstances happened. And there's a couple of things that you're thinking about, like, why did this have to happen? Why did this disease show up? There's that kind of anger. And then there's anger to the political arena. Why are they telling us what to do?
Mm-hmm.
How do we fix that? And then, there's these restrictions everywhere you go now, right? And then you're walking around society where people are wearing masks all the time. You're like, what happened to our society? So then they get depressed because what was normal for them is no longer normal for them, and they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm painting this dark picture because that's how some people are going. It's like a domino effect. They're just rolling through it, and they're not trying to see other perspectives that could happen, for them. This is an opportunity. I always say this: God sometimes closes the door to open up another one for me to say, hey, remember this talent you had? You can do this too. Remember this person that you wanted to help and do a business with? You can start that now because you got the time. Remember you wanted to get an education again. Well, there are grants out there now where the government is paying for your education. Get your bachelor's degree, get your master's degree, and reinvent yourself somewhere where there might be a need in the community, like the medical world. Maybe a special type of services that are out there. Your department, psychology, that's growing, I'm sure, a lot too.
Sure, yeah, and I agree with you. I think the more folks can, feel like they're empowered in their own future and are taking steps to kind of accomplish their goals is probably going to be empowering and improve their mood, right? But a couple things there, when someone's really depressed, unfortunately, how the brain works when it's depressed is it encodes negative experiences very well, efficiently. So if somebody's really depressed and they're down and they want to go back to school, they might really readily kind of recall all the times that they didn't do very well.
Right.
And that's going to kind of limit some of their motivation to move forward, right? Because they're like, well, it hasn't worked out before, but they're not thinking about times that it did work out, right? They might have done some continuing ed or some kind of, successes with education, but they're not really thinking about it either, and sometimes, they've okay, so I can't cite this research. I don't recall when it was done, but they basically asked a whole bunch of people, varying ages, what their goals were for the year, and it was your goals and what's going to make you happiest. And a lot of people are like, oh, when I get my new house, or when I get when I finally get my license, or whatever. And then they followed up with them a year later, and they found out, well, what actually did make you happy? Was it the three things? And when they went back and found out, well, you wanted to get your license back then, or how did that turn out? Whoa, no, now I've got to drive everyone everywhere. And it didn't pan out. But they find out that it's kind of the little moments that are really the best, the unexpected things that all kind of work out. So, I personally think it's a combination of both. I think, probably like you do, striving for something that's probably going to contribute to people.
Right.
But also, enjoying the moment as well, and kind of being, not in a rush to necessarily get there.
Yeah, that's another thing that I noticed, that people seem to be panicking. So that panic mode doesn't create a balance. It creates anxiety. And I've found that when I realized that the club closed, a lot of people were like, aren't you panicking? What are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I've been doing this for so long, and I've been in so many different facilities and management and as a trainer, as what have you. I've done everything. That I've experienced enough downtimes to realize that there's going to be an uptime. I already know that's going to come. It's what I do in that time period is going to matter for me. So me freaking out or me getting upset that something is shut down, it's not going to serve me internally any well, because I'm going to get sick or I'm going to get stressed and I'm going to get, migraines. But it's just a matter of like, but then you do internalize things, and whether you realize it or not, and that's something that I want to make a point of. As strong as you may think you are, and you may realize that, at some point your health is deteriorating or something's happening to you, and you go, where did this come from? It could be from the fact that you were stressed, but you didn't realize it. So you need to pay attention to your thoughts, at the time, and because we are so used to thinking negative that we become immune to what we're thinking and what we're telling ourselves. You're not good enough. You're never going to find another job. You're never going to meet that guy. You're never going to meet that girl. You're never going to be socially active again, especially if you're a social butterfly. You're never going to finish your degree. You're never going to get to that point. All those negative self-talks does affect you, even though if you say, oh, I'm so positive, I'm okay, so what, I lost my job, but I'll find something else. That's great to have that attitude, but do you believe it? And that's where you come in. How do you make people believe it?
Well, it's interesting what you were listing, I'm never going to find this person, or I'm never going to do that. Psychologists view those as limiting self-beliefs, right? So if you don't challenge them or kind of expose them to some sunlight, which is just rational thought, is that true? Is anyone else in your situation? Has anyone else older than you found that person or gotten that job or had that breakthrough that they wanted to, maybe financially or in the career area, right? So part of it is actually talking yourself through it. But you could even go a little bit, peel a couple more layers, and a lot of what they're finding for depression, anxiety, PTSD is a lot of these folks are out of touch with their bodies. So somatically, they're not even feeling these things. They might show up as like a stomach ache when they're really anxious. But probably something's happening before that too that you've got to kind of tap into.
Yeah, I was talking in a previous show. My emotional well-being, it determines on how my stomach is dealing with things. So if my stomach isn't working well, that means I'm stressed.
Sure. Yeah.
And I may not feel like I am. I think I have a strong mind, but my body's telling me, oh no,
something's off.
You are gonna be feeling this.
Yeah.
So no ice cream for me. So that's the thing. But I think people need to look at the signs. What are some of the signs and symptoms of someone who may be dealing with stress but doesn't even understand that they are,
Oh, could be a lot. You're, like you mentioned, stomach, any digestive issues. Could be sleep issues, right? Falling asleep, waking up too early, staying in bed too long, not getting, waking up frequently, nightmares, poor appetite. Some folks, they might eat a lot more than they normally do if they're anxious. But yeah, typically when that stuff's happening, what I recommend is using that anxious energy towards something. So if you're up all night, instead of ruminating about what's going on or what you're most worried about, I recommend setting off to solve that problem, whatever it is. If it's an email you've been avoiding or a conversation that you're worried about having, start typing it out. Kind of just get it out of your mind, and then hopefully it'll clear your mind enough to fall back asleep. But typically I'm more of I recommend more kind of active oriented interventions than.
Yeah, if you can't sleep at night and it doesn't take a lot of noise to make when you write something down, it's not like you're typing away at a keyboard or whatever, if someone's sleeping next to you, what have you, you can just write something down and really get it out of your system. Because what happens is the neurotransmitters, but let's get scientific here, doctor. So the neurotransmitters in your brain start to wake up more so. So you've got all this things buzzing around your head, and you want it to calm down enough for you to be able to go to sleep. And that's why all these medications are so popular out there that help you with the calming down of those neurotransmitters. I don't know what all of them are called, but it does help to put you in a state of calm so you can actually get into deep sleep, so that your body does regenerate and then you do heal and then you become more efficient the next day. So writing something down might take that away from your thinking, and it might help you shut it down, which is a very good suggestion to make. It only takes like 5-10 minutes at the most to write something that you really want to.
Sure, but sometimes people can get really flooded, right? Or even freeze. If something's really on your mind or it's really anxiety provoking, you may not want to move anywhere. It might just feel more safe just to stay in bed and not move. But yeah, typically forcing yourself out of there, changing your state of mind, your emotional state. I mean, what do they say? Motion creates emotion, right? So start moving.
Exercise again. Let's bring that guy in.
Yeah, exercise is huge.
That's huge. I mean, you're crazy. You get up early in the morning to work out. I don't know how you do that because I don't wake up till about maybe 11 in the afternoon. My body doesn't anyway. I've always worked out in the afternoon, so 1 to 2 o'clock for me has always been the best.
Yeah.
But there are people like you that like to work out the first thing in the morning, and I find that to be interesting too, because what does that do? It actually provides circulation not only to your body but to your brain.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say I like doing it. It's very generous, but yeah, I don't want to pretend that I enjoy it. But, I read a few years ago.
Just lie. It's okay.
I love getting up. No, it's pretty brutal. I'm kind of moaning and groaning all the way, to the gym. And, there's a part of it is it does take, I think, about 66 days to form a habit like that.
I thought it was 21. No?
It's been back and forth. I think that was the original. I think that was wishful thinking. I think it was some things. But,
Damn, there goes my business.
No, just 3 more of those, pretty much. Give or take, and you're there.
All right.
But no, getting up early, it's not fun. Or for me personally, I'm just not a morning person. But I read a few years ago, and I thought I've never forgotten this quote. But it said, get up early every now and then. Don't miss a sunrise. If you do, it's kind of a shame. And I remember I was like, God, when I read that, I was like, I don't remember last time I woke up really early to catch a sunrise. And then after, a few weeks and months of it, it's kind of like, yeah, you really do kind of miss it. You get used to it, and it is a little more easier to manage my schedule just kind of with getting up early. So I don't like it, but...
Well, I got something funny to share with you then, because I have no choice but to get up on sunrise. I have a kitten in the house. She wakes me up at, I think, 4:30 or 4:45 in the morning, and I'm looking outside going, eventually, all of a sudden it's starting to lighten up. I'm like going, oh, there you go, the morning's here, but I'm like you, I'm not enjoying waking up that early in the morning, but, there's something to be said about bringing in the new day.
There is, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of makes you feel new. It makes you feel like you've got a fresh start, and today is the day to seize for all the goals that you may want to achieve. And I think it's a good thing if you can get to that pattern.
Sure, and I don't know if I could go back comfortably just because I am a little bit of a slower starter. I do like I'll be walking around and be like, oh yeah, you know what? I do need to pack this. I need to grab one of these too. I need to remember to do that. So I don't do well historically with just running out the door and starting the day. So it is a good way to do it, but.
Well, planning is a good thing for those people who are needing that extra time in the morning. For example, you do it at night. Before you go to bed, especially if you're a night person. I'm a night person. I need to learn to become not that because it's affecting my morning time. But if you can pack your things, like I know that there's always some kind of a gym bag in the car for those people who are constantly going to the gym in the morning before they go to work. Having that always change over so that you have fresh clothes and fresh linen and things like that ready to go. I think that would help prepare you for having a pattern, a habit that's important to be created for exercise. Because exercise does more than just get you in shape. It brings oxygen into the system. It allows your body to relax after. It creates the need for nutrients, so your body absorbs nutrients more.
Mm-hmm.
It just allows overall wellness. I think it's important for anybody and everybody, and it doesn't matter if you've never worked out before in your life, and if you're 60-something years old, get started. Start walking in the mornings.
Yeah, and there's a part of our brain, I think it's called the anterior cingulate gyrus. It's kind of like the brain's shifter, like a car. It allows us kind of to shift from thought to thought without over focusing. And folks, they've done kind of metabolic studies where it's how much metabolism that part of the brain's actually utilizing, right? And if they're finding that if there's lower metabolism or too high, you're going to get different symptoms, but it usually revolves around getting stuck in certain thoughts, having a difficult time shifting out of it. And they're finding that exercise is, if you do it enough, it creates this cognitive flexibility. You can shift a little bit quicker, right?
I like that.
Because it's kind of hard to get stuck on thoughts if you're running really fast, right, or lifting weights.
Sure, because you're thinking about what you're doing at the moment too.
Yeah.
So don't go anywhere. We're going to do speaking of exercise and goodness for you, let's go take a quick 15-second break, and when we come back, we're going to go more about that brain part that doesn't make you think too much. I like that. It's my commercial.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Okay, well, we're back. We're here with Dr. Tolly Amaxopoulos. He is a behavioral psychologist. He's keeping me well behaved here in the studio. I don't know if he's doing a good job because I am getting out of line here because I'm all over the place. I think I have ADD. You need to help me with this. But no, we're talking about the exercise and how it helps with the brain and helps you, not focus so much on the negativity that you may be dealing with throughout the day. And that's like that 1 hour that you're focusing on just positive reinforcements.
Yeah, as far as I know, they're not exactly sure what does it, because some folks are saying kind of what you said, right? It's, if you're exercising, your brain's getting more nutrients, the nutrients it needs to maybe function more optimally, or maybe there's something in exercise that just kind of creates this more flexible brain. I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, it sounds like the biggest takeaway I think from the research I've done is that our bodies are just built for regular exercise. It just seems like that's a
physical activities
of
some sort.
Yeah, it just seems like we don't do well without it.
Well, let me talk about the people that don't do physical, like traditional exercise. Let's say, like, you don't go to the gym, but they work in their garden and they work in home and they do things to repair, but they're constantly moving and they're doing things, but they're not getting that cardiovascular type of exercise. Does that help with their mind as well and their bodies to get that positive reinforcement like regular exercise would?
I think it's got to have benefits. I would imagine just off the cuff, it's going to be much better than a sedentary lifestyle. But a lot of the recommendations I'm giving out are kind of based on John Rady's research, right? He's the one that went to the worst performing schools in Chicago, where typically I think at that time there was a 30% obesity rate among students. And he got these kids exercising, running, obesity down to 3%. I think even some of the students were kind of the highest performing in the country at that time. So the link's pretty clear. When you are exercising regularly at a kind of an elevated heart rate, it seems to be best for the mental health. But I mean, if somebody can't do that for a number of reasons, gardening, being outside, hiking, it's got to be good for you, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially I'm thinking about the older generational here in Hawaii, we do have sunshine 24/7 pretty much, and everyone's outside working on their garden or walking around their apartments and doing things, but it's not the same type of exercises that you would get at a gym, or if you're actually running, that putting that stress in your system. But I'm just wondering with mental health too, let's get into that, because there's a lot of that here in Hawaii. Besides the homeless, we have I have, speaking of which, I live in an apartment complex, and across from me there is this couple, and they fight. And I don't think they're fighting because they don't love each other. I think they're fighting because she's got a mental illness. The cops have come many times, and I've watched this. I feel kind of weird watching this from a distance, but there's nothing I can do. But I had so much compassion for them, because he was trying so hard to control her from doing anything bad, and she was so upset and seeing things that weren't there. And I can tell that she had some kind of a chemical imbalance in the brain, which would be triggered if she didn't maybe take her medications and what have you. How do you help families that are dealing with, or people that love somebody that has a mental illness, and now you're stuck at home with each other too. So there are stresses that you deal with individually, and then now you have to deal with the stress of someone that you love at home that has a mental illness. How do you guys in your industry help those people who have some sort of mental disorder? How do you help the people that have to deal with them? Because you really can't help them per se except for giving medication. How do you help the people deal with them?
Sure, that's a loaded question, but there's
You got this.
but
You got this.
there's so many things, right? Medication compliance, and I mean what you're kind of describing is the far end of some mental health, right? It sounds like some hallucinations,
yeah.
some pretty severe features there. So yeah, and you're right. It's probably compound the stress when somebody is just, you're in close proximity, right, with the other person. When usually my approach is just I'm interested to hear about people's individual experience. What is it like? 'Cause, what's it like to take care of someone like that's having that type of trouble, right? Is this a familiar thing for you? Do you have someone else in your childhood that you've had to take care of? Because I'm interested in people's resiliency and familiarity with the type of situation that they're in.
Is there like a language that you teach them to talk back to someone? Let's say if their elderly grandmother or grandfather has Alzheimer's or dementia, they're obviously not purposely being angry and defiant. They have a physical thing going on in their head.
Sure, there is a language I recommend. It's called nonviolent communication. And what you'll typically have, I'd say, I couldn't even predict it, but I'd say most of the time is, Dad, you need to get to the doctor. I'm worried about you. You're not remembering things like you used to. Now the thing is, if anyone interprets what you're saying as a criticism, they're going to get defensive. So that's kind of like, I don't trust your capacity.
Right.
So you're going to get, no, I'm fine.
Right.
You're going to get that kind of rough response typically, or maybe some denial. Oh, don't worry about it.
Or do you think I'm crazy? I'm not going to go with you. You're going to take me to a crazy farm.
Sure, that would be on the defensive side of things. So nonviolent communication, it's all about making your concern about yourself, not the other person. So it's not saying you've got this issue you've got to deal with. It's basically saying you're doing it's very non-critical. It's an observation, it's a feeling, it's a need, and a request. So it's basically like, hey, hey Dad, I noticed you forgot, you forgot where to put your tools again today. You haven't done that in maybe 20 years. And, this is the 5th time this month that you've done it. That's the observation. It's nothing, not even, it's just like, I know.
You're not saying anything, you're doing it, but you're saying, I've noticed.
Yeah, I just picked up on this.
Yeah.
And then the feeling is, I'm worried. I haven't seen you do this in a while. I'm wondering if everything's okay. I'm worried our relationship might change if this is something kind of serious. And then the need is probably for your parent to be healthy. I have this need that you're going to be safe and healthy. Would you be willing to go see a doctor about this? And the cool thing about nonviolent communication is you're probably going to get a lot of no's up front. Most parents, in that predicament,
they're in denial. They don't want to say that they're losing their control of their mindset.
Yeah, but you may not get a defensive response. You may get something like, oh, I'm fine. I'm not too worried about it. And then a few weeks later, essentially you say the same kind of thing over and over. It's non-critical. And then eventually all you're trying to do is kind of plant a seed. Hey, this is what I'm noticing. This is kind of getting me worried. I really need you to kind of be healthy and safe, and would you be willing to do this? And if they have this feeling like they can say no, it takes away a lot of the pressure. And then eventually they may come to the conclusion, or they might talk to a friend that maybe got checked out or something, and suddenly they're more open to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are out there. I have personal relationships with two that their family members are in denial, and I think it's because they're thinking, I'm just old. This comes with age, deal with it. Like, especially if you can't hear. Like, my mom can't hear too well. She's got this hearing thing, and she still hasn't gotten a hearing aid. And I'm like, Mom, we need to get you a hearing aid. And she's like, what?
Sure, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So, it makes a better quality of life at the end of the day if you, as a child, an adult child, taking care of an elderly parent, Alzheimer's is a terrible disease. It eats away at the brain. It takes away the personality that was once there, and it's a sad thing to see, because I have a godmother that has this, and she's, gratefully, she's older. She's like 90, God bless her. And but when you're younger and you still got a lot of life to live, let's see if you're like 70 or 60.
Scary.
It's yeah. I mean, how do you help those patients? How do you help those kids they love their parents, but they're having such a hard time coping with their anger, the parents' anger towards them, or the blaming them for not doing the job when they're forgetting and they're not realizing that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They just don't see their side of the story. I think the kids need you. Maybe not the mom and dad, but the kids will need you for that support.
Sure, and that's a great stress, right? Caretaking stress. It's oftentimes these folks are working full-time jobs, right? They're raising their own kids, and then they're entering a whole new realm with their parents, right? They're not aware of the different options, the modalities. They may not. I mean, they may struggle to even find the capacity to deal with the issue, right? Because there's so much information and there's so many different.
Googling everything is not going to help them.
No. Typically, what I recommend for folks in those situations is look at, almost any situation. If someone's depressed, or even if someone has Alzheimer's or signs of it, get a baseline, get a snapshot of where you're at. Go get some cognitive testing done. Find out how your memory's doing.
What type of doctor would you have them go to for that?
A neuropsychologist could do it. I mean, their job is really to do cognitive testing, which means they're going to test your parent or a family member's memory, visual spatial ability, how well they're able to reason, and then give you a baseline. So okay, here's where mom is, here's our population, here's where most people are.
Comparison.
Yeah, and then if you do one of those every couple of years, you consult. I mean, that's my go-to is always consult. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. There's people that they write books on this stuff that that could probably take off a year's worth of researching time, because they've already done it.
Yeah, and if you can get your parent in sooner than later, especially if they have the signs of dementia or Alzheimer's, it's better for them, because then they can have medication that will slow it down to a level where they can live a full quality of life and not be so inundated with the changes that occur, unless they have a rapid moving one. That's a different story, but I don't know. I mean, it's scary out there. You just don't know. Isn't it weird? You're a professional in this industry of understanding behavioral psychology. You're not a brain surgeon or a brain doctor.
No.
We still don't understand, with all the research that we've done, why we do what we do. And is it really a choice, or is it a physical integrity thing in the brain that's causing us to respond in the manner that we're doing? Because sometimes we get so angry at people, then I have to stop and think, and I go, is this person really like this, or do they have a personality disorder based on a chemistry dysfunction in the brain?
Yeah, I mean, Freud had some ideas around it. He called it a repetition compulsion. He thought a lot of folks got into familiar scenarios in adulthood that they were in childhood in hopes of unconsciously overcoming them, which is really crazy to think about, right? Why would anyone want to sabotage? Because in his time, he thought people were either avoiding pain or pursuing pleasure. He couldn't understand why anyone would self-sabotage. Why would somebody go against kind of those two principles? And he found that his hypothesis was it had to do with familiarity. So is there free will? I mean, that's a good philosophical question.
I know.
I hope so.
I have a lot of those, but I
hope there is.
I mean, because to me, it's like, this is where we develop compassion, right? When you have somebody that you care about behaving in such a way where you think they're a narcissist, or that they have, evil tendencies, or they do things that are so bad that you can't even understand why they would do that to someone. And then you look at them, and sometimes I feel like we use this as a crutch. Oh, he's a narcissist. Well, no, maybe he's got some kind of chemical disorder in his brain, and he doesn't even realize that he's being, or she's being, so manipulative and so bad, in our normal society understanding of what is good and what is bad. And I feel like with those types of understandings, and because we're all stuck at home, this is what I'm trying to bring this whole thing that we're doing today into one little cubbyhole. we're all stuck at home. And how do we deal with personalities, right? And how are we going to cope with each other? And if you don't know your relatives by now, if you don't know your father and mother and sister and brother, and know that they have these certain issues, it could be that you need to open up your eyes and pay attention to the fact that maybe they do have a chemical disorder. If they have an obsessive disorder complex where they've always constantly cleaning, maybe you should pay attention to that and say, this isn't really that normal. This person is obsessed with keeping things clean, so much of this taken away from the rest of their life, right?
Yeah.
This is where you take people to see you.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with cleanliness, right? But I think you're talking about more a compulsive.
Yeah.
This is more impairing maybe different areas.
Where they
of
lose
life.
it if they don't do a certain thing. Like
Sure.
if they need to like clean the bathroom, clean the bedrooms, clean the floors, clean this before they actually can walk out of the house. And they're always running late because they're doing that instead of going to their appointments or going to functions, because that's what takes priority.
Sure, and there's so many reasons for that. I mean, like you said, I think there's definitely an organic component in that where it might just be how that person's brain's functioning at this point. But you could also make the argument that repetition of the same behaviors over and over could change brain functioning too, right? So.
Right. 60 days, is that what you said?
Now I forgot. I thought it was 60. Yeah, 66, right?
Okay, 66.
Yeah,
sorry.
that's what it was.
See, I'm giving myself an extra week.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it takes a bit to kind of understand somebody's motivations. Are they doing it because it's and then there's some folks where it's called a secondary gain. They gain something by being really anxious. As bizarre as that sounds, because you would imagine, why would anyone want to obsessively think about the same thing over and over? But in some cases there may be some avoidance of facing other things in life that
True, and it makes them feel better at the end of the day too, because they could also get attention, right? They get attention when they behave a certain way, and they realize that when they behave a certain way, they get this. Like a kid, right? Kid behaves badly, they get the attention. Yeah, because they're conditioning their family, so they do all the things that they're supposed to do to get their attention. And then they make them feel bad, and then they feel bad at the end of it, because they just realize after getting their high, it's almost like a drug. You get your high, you enjoy it, and then you come down from it and you realize, oh, I just really messed things up.
Sure.
Then you play catch up.
Yeah, and there's the guilt and remorse sometimes. And I kind of explain it like a thermostat. Some families have the temperature set very high. It's always kind of tense. Mom and dad might be always arguing, the siblings are going at it. And what happens is, if it gets too cool, it will set itself again. If it's set too high, if things are just going a little too comfortably, somebody might poke and warm each other up, right?
Yeah, exactly. See, that's not good either, though.
Well, okay, I think good or bad, you can always learn something from it. So even if I'm working with somebody that might be creating kind of a tense environment at home, usually, if they can get some awareness around it and see why they're doing it, it can be really rewarding. They can feel like, wow, I can really, I don't have to do this anymore. I can,
and free them from that.
Yeah. So I hear you. I mean, it's frustrating, I think, for everybody that experiences that, but sometimes we just get stuck in these habits, and I think the Gottmans called it kind of a gridlocked communication pattern, where it doesn't go anywhere. They're just arguing about the same things, as opposed to kind of a more exploratory thing, which is, very difficult to do. And some folks need a coach to guide them through that kind of conversation if they don't do it regularly or they never saw it growing up. Because, I think I've talked about before with you at one point, relationships have three areas, right? There's harmony, there's disharmony, and then there's repair. And most of us just don't see enough of the repair work.
Yeah, it's too much work, that's why.
It is. It's a lot of work. It's uncomfortable.
And all of us are drained. We're just done. We just want someone that's already fixed and could show up, Make sure you work on yourself and then show up, because we don't want to deal with making you better, because I'm still working on me.
And there's global pandemic fatigue, right? Everyone's just a little bit weirded out. Yeah.
We're done. Yeah. We're all done. That's why you're here today. We're going to do another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what you're up to now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so don't go anywhere, everyone.
Forgot about that. How we doing?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
That's me.
I like it.
And we're back. We're here with Dr. Tolly Amaxopoulos. You know, I got to say that like a lot today.
That was the best. I don't
That
think
was
I could
that
say
was
that
really
good.
good.
Yeah.
I know, and you own this name too. That's crazy. Okay, so we were talking so much about psychology and the brain and the issues that we may have, and so I'm just thinking, like, you know, with everything that's been going on, you've had the ability. 2 months ago, you were telling me you joined the Department of Education as an advisory, you know, because of your background and things that you've done. Is there any updates that we should know about? Because the last time we were just getting into the school year and figuring things out.
Sure, not a whole lot. I mean, I work specifically with school-based behavioral health, so they're looking at you know, kind of the mental health of the students, and right now everything's really up in the air until there's, I think, more testing available, and there's not. I don't think there's as far as I know, I don't know if there's a concrete definitive plan yet. I think they're trying to get the students back as soon as possible.
Right.
And I think in some cases, special ed, they're allowing the students back, and you know, obviously staff is on campus, but
And they're doing the what do you call it? The certain groups come in at certain times. I forgot what it was called. Let's say the 500 kids come in. It's a big school, or 200 kids come in, and then 6 weeks later another group comes in. So it's like it's not all at once.
yeah, but all schools are doing it a little bit differently, right? Even the private schools are, you know, I think they are moving towards that model, but I don't think there's one single plan yet, unfortunately. I think a lot of that's going to just depend on testing.
Yeah, because it's so hard because they don't have so much space. I mean, 6 feet apart, and then you have the plexiglasses and these kids. I don't even know what kind of society we're creating here. It's killing me. Because, I mean, not only do we have them masked up, we don't get to see your face. We don't know how to do facial recognition. These kids are young, and they're like 2 or 3 years old in preschool, and they're looking at each other with a mask on their face. How do you relate to someone when you don't even see their face, you know?
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is there, but yeah, I agree with you. It's really important to get all that information, and part of it is with all these kind of Zoom meetings where, you know, everyone's doing is your brain is getting really fatigued. So the reason why, if you're on like a train or a bus and you hear a phone call, the reason it's frustrating to most people is because your brain wants to complete things. If you're only hearing half of the conversation, your brain's just getting kind of frustrated because
Right.
it can't figure out what's happening. So when you're on a Zoom call or a meeting or something like that that's online, or Google Meets or Google Hangouts, you're not getting all the body language. So your brain is actually working more to try to figure out what's happening, and
Right.
by the end of the day, it's a different kind of tired that
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of new to everybody.
Yeah, it's learning a new program, or it's like going to a new job, and you have to learn everything, new steps and things like that. And by the time you're done, even though it wasn't very hard, you're exhausted. But I think for these kids, you know, going back to school, they're trying to get their handle on this normal. Maybe it's easier for kids because they didn't have as much life experience as the adults did, but you know, I think teachers are probably having a hard time with it too, because they have to adjust their syllabus, they have to figure out how to educate now. It's not the same way.
No, and then parents are looking for childcare, right, and all these kind
that's
of
another-
options, and trying to work at the same time. So I think stress is probably fairly high, I'd imagine.
My biggest concern is what's going to happen to our adrenal gland and what's going to happen to our thyroids, and these are all connected to each other, and you know, sleep patterns, and then also if you don't sleep, immune system doesn't go up, you know,
Yeah.
immune system goes down. So we really need to take, and if there's anything that I'm getting from everything that you're saying, we really need to empower ourselves with knowledge, with things that we can do and our options.
Mm-hmm.
So you suggested a few books. There was one that for the kids that you said something about Angry Child or something like that. What was that
The
called?
Explosive Child.
The
Yeah, that's a
Explosive
good one.
Child.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's a really good one. The Explosive Child. That might give some insight for teachers as well as parents to understand the kid and why they're frustrated.
I think Driven to Distraction's a good one. That's all about ADHD.
Okay.
And just kind of understanding that it's, you know, it's a real thing. Because
Yeah.
you know, you work with a lot of parents, and you know, they're, you know, some, I guess maybe more old school, are kind of like, oh, you know, my kid's just being lazy. And once they start learning about it, it's like, whoa, this is very serious. To, you know, if you don't treat ADHD, you know, there could be a lot of long-term consequences.
Right.
So, but it's subtle, right? It's not like degenerative disease that you can see the symptoms right away and really profound. It's more.
Yeah, I think my kitten has ADHD. She needs something.
Pet
3
psychologist.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I need a little break here. So, 'cause she doesn't know what toy to play with. It's just everywhere. But I think it's funny that you say this, because a lot of things out there people dismiss as the child being overactive, and there could be that, they could be highly intelligent, and they just need a lot of stimulus. They need something more than just a computer. They may need more interaction. So as a parent and teacher, you just have to be aware of that. I don't know, it's not easy. I mean, we talk here, but being there physically, it's not easy. I mean,
Sure.
There's so much involved. You've got other kids too in the classroom that you have to be supportive of, and parents have expectations of the teachers to still educate the way they're supposed to educate.
Yeah.
But really, I think it's on parents, though. At the end of the day, as a non-parent saying this to a parent, which is hypocritical, I get it, but it really is, because I was raised by 2 parents that worked a lot, and they really made sure that they were involved in my brothers and my life, and in such a way that they were always aware of what we were doing, our comings and goings. And I think that's really, really important to understand the mindset, the emotional set, the needs, physical needs, so that we grow up to be well-rounded people. I think I grew up okay. Not the best, but I'm okay. So I think it's important that parents, especially now, need to pay attention, because as much as you want self-time for yourself, can you imagine this little child doesn't have those experiences to take care of themselves the way that they need? It's our parents' responsibility to make sure the kids' emotional well-being at least is being met, like they're loved, they feel secure, supported, things like that. So, do you agree? Or you think I'm assuming things
No,
again?
I think, being attuned to kids is probably one of the best things you can do.
Yeah.
And also, going off your kind of last point, the more you can learn about how to create that attunement, the better. Maybe it's through books, maybe it's through, talking it through with somebody. But learning more about how to be better, I think, is, a great strategy for anybody.
Any other books that you can suggest for, let's say, adults to read for their stress management?
Oh boy, for stress, there's a lot. I just finished Breathe. I don't know the author offhand, but that's just phenomenal.
Really?
Yeah, basically, it just convinced me that I've been
Holding your breath?
wrong. Yeah. I could start chronologically or alphabetically on the wrong way to breathe, but he's done a ton of funny experiments on himself, and it's pretty eye-opening. So it's a good one.
It's amazing. That's another topic of a show. I think at least 10 minutes of it is on breathing. People don't get it. People hold their breath a lot,
Sure.
and they don't realize. They wonder why they're dizzy, or they feel like they don't get the full capacity of their brains because they're not getting enough oxygen in, or their body may feel tired. They're like, drink a glass of water when you're hungry. Well, why do you do that? The water also hydrates your system, oxygenates everything. So all of that stuff, breathing, all the natural stuff, easy stuff, cheap, free. Free stuff.
Well, you could buy an app, but it's
you can buy an app?
Yeah.
Okay, forget it then. I was wrong. But no, that's good. So, we run out of time as a normal. You're wonderful to talk to because you've got so much information. I feel like I talk more than you do. Maybe this is like my 1 hour therapy with Dr. Tolly. He gives me my therapy. Any ways that they can reach you if they need to, or would you want me to just put it through my?
Oh sure, yeah, I can give you my Twitter or Instagram.
Yeah, because you got one now.
Yeah, I
What's
do
it
have
called
an Instagram.
again? What was
I think it's Dr. Tolly. Maybe a period. I'm getting with the times.
There you go, people. You heard it. Dr. Tolly. Go to Instagram, go to his Twitter. Or if you guys need to IM him or inbox him or what have you, go ahead and bombard him. But other than that, that's it for us today. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I appreciate all of you. Please stay healthy and stay safe. Make sure you go to my website, Be Fit for Health. If you haven't heard the commercials enough, that is. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for joining me. Aloha.